Hi, I'm Reverend Jake Zabe, and welcome to Children's Bible Stories. Hello children, our Bible story for today is going to be the story of King Solomon's wealth. So King Solomon became the richest man on earth. In fact, one economist did some studies and he measured the wealth of Solomon and compared it with other historical figures and found that King Solomon was the fifth most richest person in history. But what is most interesting about that though is that out of those 5 figures, the first 4 figures ruled over vast empires. For example, the 4th richest person in history was Caesar Augustus, who ruled over the entire Roman Empire, whereas King Solomon ruled only over the area of the Kingdom of Israel. So even though he may be the 5th most richest person in all of history, if we take into account that he had all that wealth contained in one small kingdom rather than over large empires like the others, he would proportionately be richer than even those other rich figures in history. And Solomon had heaps of wealth. The Bible tells us that in 1 year he received 666 talents of gold. That's quite a lot. And that his traders and his merchants used to bring stuff from the kings of Arabia and the governors of the land. And King Solomon took that gold and he made 200 large shields of beaten gold, and 600 shekels of gold went into them, each large shield. So each shield had 600 shekels of gold, and he made 200 golden shields to put into the house of the forest of Lebanon, referring to the palace. And the king then made a great throne of ivory. Now, ivory is a very rare substance made from elephant teeth. But then Solomon took this very rare ivory throne and he coated it in gold. He then had a bunch of lion statues built next to his throne. So he had 2 lions put right next to his throne. But then the Bible also told us that leading up to the throne, there were 6 steps. And that each step also had 2 lions on the step, making a total of 12 lions to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. But then you also had the 2 lions next to Solomon's throne, meaning 14 lion statues in total. What is also interesting is that the Bible said that Solomon had a large fleet of ships of Tarshish. Whoosh. Now the ships of Tarshish were the best ships at that period of time. And Tarshish was a port city on the opposite side of the Mediterranean Sea over in the land of Spain. And those ships were made to go all over the Mediterranean Sea. They were the best ships at that period of time. But if we also read, Solomon had built a big port city at Ezion-Geber, which is near Eloth, on the shore of the Red Sea, down the bottom of the south of Israel. And Solomon had a big fleet of ships, possibly ships of Tarshish. Now in 1 Kings 9, when it mentions that Solomon built this port city, it does not mention him having ships of Tarshish there. But in the next chapter, when it talks of Solomon's fleet, the ships are referred to as ships of Tarshish. Also later in the events of Kings, when we get to the King Jehoshaphat, it mentions that his fleet of the ships of Tarshish down at Ezion-Geber had been destroyed. So we know that the kings of Israel were using ships of Tarshish down at Ezion Geber. Now what is interesting about this is that the ships of Tarshish were built in Tarshish over in Spain. Then they had to sail across the Mediterranean to Israel, possibly landing at the port city of Joppa. And then in order to get down to Ezion Geber on the Red Sea, the ships would have had to be taken out of the water, transported by land, and taken all the way and then put down in the Red Sea. So they had to be taken out of the Mediterranean Sea and transported overland to the Red Sea. And the reason why Solomon wanted the ships to go there is it said that he sent the ships to Ophir, where they would get heaps of talents of gold. Now, historians don't know exactly where Ophir was. Some people argue that it was near the land of Ethiopia, whereas others believe it was near the land of modern-day India. There are a few reasons why we think Ophir was in India. The first reason is that the church historian Josephus identified the lands of Havilah and Ophir with the land of India. Secondly, when St. Thomas later went to go preach in the land of India, he came across a community of Jews who claimed to have been descendants from the traders of King Solomon who used to sail from Israel to India. Mainly, the third reason for why people think that Ophir is India is because the Bible tells us that every 3 years the ships of Tarshish would sail back to Israel. Now, it didn't take 3 years to sail across the Mediterranean or to sail down to Ethiopia. It may have taken 3 years to sail all the way to India. But more importantly, when the ships returned, it said that they brought with them gold and silver and ivory, which is made from elephant teeth, and there are elephants in India, although there are also elephants in Africa. But it also says it brought with them apes and peacocks. So every 3 years, Saul's traders who sailed off to Ophir would come back and they'd bring with them peacocks and apes. Although some translations have apes or baboons or peacocks. And what is interesting is that peacocks come from India. And so, if the ships were sailing off to Ophir and coming back with peacocks, then they'd have to be sailing to the land of India. And so, children, King Solomon excelled all the kings of the earth in his riches and his wisdom. So much that he had so much gold and silver and garments and weaponry and spices and horses and mules, and he received so much every year from the other kings of the land and his traders going out and bringing back all this wealth. And Solomon gathered together chariots and horses, and he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, which he stationed in the chariot cities with the king in Jerusalem. And the king made silver as common in Jerusalem as rocks. And he made cedar, which is a very expensive and good quality wood. He made it as common as sycamore wood. And Solomon imported horses from Egypt and Kua, and the king traders received them from Kua at a price. And a chariot could be imported from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150 shekels of silver. So throughout the king's traders, they were exported to all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Aram. So Solomon is gaining much wealth from all over the world. He gets ships all the way from Tarshish in Spain. He gets peacocks and monkeys and gold and silver all the way from Ophir in India. He's getting horses and chariots all the way down in Egypt and Cush in Ethiopia. And he's trading with the kings of Aram and the Hittites up in the north, in the land that we today would refer to as the countries of Turkey and Afghanistan. And Solomon gathered all this wealth, and the Lord blessed him exceedingly great. And that's our Bible story for today, children. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. Goodbye, and God bless. Oh, look at those peacocks. Look at those monkeys.